You're watching the PoliticIt podcast.
Good evening. Welcome to PoliticIt podcast. We've got David Sawyer with us. David, you're the Executive Director of Economic Development.
Deputy Executive Director of Community and Economic Development for Ogden City.
Okay. I knew I would mess that up because that was such a long title, but tell us a little bit about you. I want to know more about you as a person. What got you into this profession? Where'd you grow up?
Sure. Yeah.
Are you where are you? And when did you come to Ogden?
Sure.
Right?
Yeah. Well, I grew up in Colorado Springs, Colorado, and I was my first career opportunities were involved in sales and business development, and I worked for a number of companies. Found myself in Minnesota, and I was actually only in my mid-20s when I thought, I really like this community I'm living in. I'm going to run for city council. And so I decided to do that. And I went down to the city clerk's office. I applied to run in the election race. And a few days before the election, I went actually the day of the election, I went to my next door neighbor who I rented to. I had a duplex there, and I said, "Did you vote in the election?" And she said, "No, we haven't been down there." And I'm like, "Can you go vote? And it'd be nice if you voted for me." And so she did. She said she did, and I won that election by 2 votes. In this town that I lived in.
So did you go thank her for putting you over the top?
Yeah, that's right. And so that was my first 4-year term, and I just loved that.
This was Minnesota?
Yep. A little town called Long Lake, Minnesota, which is a suburb of Minneapolis. And so 4 years later, I ran again, and it was a much more competitive race, and I did a lot of door-to-door stuff, and I won that also, and served another 4 years. And then at the end of that, so I'd been on the council for 8 years, I ran for mayor, and which was also very competitive, and I did a lot of talking with citizens throughout the town, and I won that by, I got like 76% of the vote, and so did well. And I really enjoyed that as well. And so that kind of whetted my appetite for community development and working with folks, and just really the pride and joy that comes from contributing to your community.
So you were pretty young as a mayor.
I was in my mid-30s, and so just really enjoyed that. I continued in the smaller towns. That's a part-time job. That's not a full-time gig, and so. I still did my corporate work, which by that time was, I was vice president of marketing for a medical device company. That also took me to other locations in the U.S. as well over time. And so ultimately ended up in working in community development, and I was able to kind of join my background in corporate marketing and communications with community service, and so that was like the best of worlds. And so my wife grew up in central Utah, and so we usually found ourselves in Utah a couple times a year visiting family and friends. And so when I saw this opportunity open up in Ogden, it was just such a natural fit, and that was business development, economic development, and for Ogden City, and had always loved this area. And so I interviewed for the job and got that about 5 years ago next month.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I don't think people realize how impressive Ogden is in terms of that. Mm-hmm. You look at this development out at Defense Depot, Ogden.
Yes.
And what we've been able to accomplish as a city, right? And just the whole revitalization of Ogden as a city.
Yeah.
It's been an economic, I don't know that it reaches to the miracle stage, but it's certainly one of the most dynamic places I know of.
Yeah, we have community improvement projects that the city of Ogden is able to do way beyond the level that most cities our size can do. And a lot of that has to do with the forward thinking that went into Business Depot Ogden and the resulting blessing that has been to Ogden City. And so we, as a city, we own the property that is at Business Depot Ogden. We contract with Boyer Company to lease and manage those properties. And then the Ogden City shares in the lease revenues from.
Well, I remember, I remember when there was talk of closing down, and I call it Defense Depot, right? But it is the Business Depot, Ogden. But I remember when they were talking about shutting that down and how dismayed people were, thinking, oh, well, that's the end of Ogden, right? Because that was a major source of jobs and revenue. Yep. But it's pretty amazing how quickly that place. I mean, you're reaching capacity on a lot of that, right?
Right. There's still some capacity there, but it does very well, and the level of capacity there. I mean, the tenants that lease there, it stays pretty full. So it's been a real nice, and it's a nice area. It shows well when we do a lot of business recruitment, and we bring people in from other areas, California in particular, Texas, Ohio, and to be able to bring them to Ogden. They take one look at the mountains and they're just like overwhelmed. We sometimes in Ogden, I think we take for granted, or in Utah, how beautiful this place is. But we're reminded of it every time we bring in out-of-town guests to talk to them about doing business and moving their business or expanding their business into Ogden. We're reminded of that, how beautiful it is, because they look out the windows as we're driving from the airport and they're just stunned at how beautiful this place is. And so we're very blessed to be here, for sure. Yeah. So it's a pretty easy sell.
So let's talk a little bit about your job, mm-hmm. right? And what you do, and what are the most challenging things you're looking at right now?
Well, first of all, just to help you understand, community and economic development for Ogden City includes 6 different divisions. And so it's pretty diverse. So everything from the Ogden City Airport, that's one of our divisions, and there's a whole story there that I'd love to tell you about. Building services, which is everything from business licensing to permitting to planning, approvals, all that, zoning, code enforcement, making sure that things stay cleaned up and nice in Ogden City. Community development, which is housing. And we get involved in housing development and taking properties that nobody is interested in from a development perspective or a contractor perspective, and then fixing them up and then making those available. And then cultural services, which is our group at Union Station that helps with all of our community activities, our arts, our culture, our entertainment, as well as the Union Station management and all the activities that go on there. Economic development, which is our business development team, everything from recruitment to working with existing businesses on expansion projects and keeping them and supporting them with work.
So Business Depot would be part of that, or?
Yeah, I mean,
right.
In terms of helping with the recruitment effort to keep those buildings full as much as possible. And then finally planning. And so we have our whole general plan that we're currently updating for the whole city, which is a very big undertaking. And so it's been a couple decades since Ogden City's done that. So that's a big project for us. So yeah, so.
At the legislature, I know, one of the major issues that is always at the top of the agenda is housing.
Yes.
Right. And to me, it's pretty amazing what Ogden's done, given that this is a city that's pretty established. Mm-hmm. There isn't a lot of new property, right? And some of the innovative things you've done with apartment buildings and other things to provide affordable housing it's actually pretty amazing.
Yeah, we still have a lot of, you're right, we don't have available green space, that we can just expand out to. I mean, we're surrounded by other communities for sure, but we still have infill opportunities. And so we have properties that, for one reason or another, have not been developed over the years or have sat empty. And those are opportunities for us to make the highest and best use of those properties that are not actively engaged in either providing housing or a business or something like that. So yeah, we're always looking for those opportunities to make things better, to make the community better, right? And housing is huge for us. And so, in fact, in about a half an hour or so, we have on a 4:30 on a Friday afternoon, we have a meeting about housing. So
Oh, interesting.
talking about some of the opportunities we have going forward. So
Let's talk about some of the other projects you're working on right now. What are the ones that are kind of at the top of the
Sure.
list right at this moment?
Well, first, I brought this along with me just so I didn't forget. We developed a few years ago, so it's like 5 years ago, we developed the Downtown Ogden Master Plan, which we call Make Ogden. And it lays out basically a 25-year plan for Ogden City, and with a primary emphasis on downtown as a big opportunity to take properties and assets that we have, combine them with our cultural assets, our historic assets, and to redevelop and make it a more attractive and nicer place to visit, live, work, and play. And so we're in episode 1 of that plan right now, and some of the outcomes of that you're seeing right now include such very large, really kind of generational projects, such as the Wonder Block project, which is currently being constructed between 25th and 26th Street.
It's where the old Wonder Bread facility was.
Exactly right, which is where the name came from for
Right.
the block. And so the parking structure itself is currently being
So is that close to being done, the parking structure?
Parking structure is supposed to be done at the end of September, and so we'll be ready to put public parking in there probably in October or November. And so that's going very nicely. And now they're beginning to work on the apartments. There'll be 354 units that will be developed there on the upper floors. There will be retail and a grocery store on the main level. The grocer will be facing Lincoln and 26th Street, a smaller downtown grocery store, which people are very excited about that. That's the one I hear most of the positive comments about. There'll be Class A office space there, as well as a new hotel property that will open up and face 25th Street, historic 25th Street. There'll be a pedestrian patio that goes all the way through the block, both east and west and north and south. And it's going to be a really nice facility.
So it faces 25th Street, but it's like a half a block off of 25th Street, or how does that?
There is an empty lot there. If you think of like where Rooster's Restaurant is, and O-Town Eats, and the Thread shop there. There's a lot there, so it'll be long and slim, and then there'll be a pedestrian patio that goes by there. And so and there'll be valet parking on the back side and so forth. So we're excited about that. There's already been engagement regarding we can't talk about the hotel group that will be involved in that, but kind of a boutique hotel as part of a larger group hotel. So,
that's cool.
So we're excited about that. So the parking structure I mentioned, the end of this year we'll be occupying that into 25. All of those different elements, the apartment.
So does that kind of wrap around then the courthouse that's there?
Yes, exactly right. And so we took, as part of the development, we traded, so to speak, that big parking lot that was the court parking.
Right.
That was, we traded with the state for parking in the Wonder Block parking structure.
Okay.
And so when you think about urban development downtown.
So that's why that construction hasn't happened yet, because they need parking before you could really tear out that parking.
Right. Well, we actually moved their parking out of their big parking lot to Lincoln or to Grant Avenue.
Okay.
And so we restriped that's for the employee and patron parking on Grant right now, temporarily, and then they'll move into the Wonder Block parking garage at the end of September. And so if you think about the best ways to develop downtown, the years are gone where we'll be developing new large asphalt parking lots.
Right.
Instead, we'll be developing parking structures and going up to make the highest and best use of the property instead of, it also increases pedestrian walkability and makes better use of those valuable parcels downtown instead of parking lots.
Well, and it makes some sense too, because those buildings aren't open when you need the parking,
Yeah, that's a good point.
during the weekends and stuff like that for
That's a good
the
point, too.
businesses and everything. And even at night, right?
Yep, for all the activities, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're very excited about that project. We're going to do a community update this Wednesday night at Union Station at 5:30. We'll have we've asked the developer, our development partner.
So 5:30 when?
This Wednesday night.
Wednesday, okay.
That's the 25th, I believe.
Okay.
And so that'll be at Union Station. And we're just going to do a brief update and let everybody. We've been getting a lot of calls at the office, wondering when the residential units will be available, and when the parking will be available, and when the commercial property and who they should talk to about it. So we're going to give an update on all that. So yeah.
So will that whole facility then be owned by the city? Is that?
So the parking structures, which will be public parking, those will be owned by the city. Our development partner, the J. Fisher Company, will own and operate the commercial properties and the residential properties. So it's
And the payback to the city is the tax revenue that comes from that.
That's true. Yeah, we have a development agreement, and that all works out to the benefit of the city over the years. Yeah. So
Very good.
yeah.
So now I've heard of some activity that's going to go on at the Union Station.
Yes.
So can you give us some idea about what's going on there?
Yes. Union Station, obviously, that's one of the historic gems of Ogden City. That's kind of the center focal point of our downtown. So we're very proud of that. As you know, we just celebrated the 100-year celebration of that facility this last year, and had a lot of events throughout the year. Very, very cool, including the 100-year time capsule opening. And I don't know if you saw that, but and we put a new time capsule in the building. And so we need to do a lot of work over the next few years to make sure that 100 years from now, that building's still there to be experienced, and a new time capsule will be opened at that time, or that time capsule will be open. But anyway, so we have plans to renovate the building historically, bring it back to its former glory. But just to give you a little bit of a taste of what's coming, we've been working with our development partners, which include UTA and J. Fisher Companies, Mortensen, as well as UDOT on Wall Avenue. We have a whole campus plan there. So not just the building itself, but a lot of the vacant property and the parking lots to the north and south of the Union Station. We call that the Union Station neighborhood, or the Union Station campus. And so there's a whole development planned at that location. One of the key factors is bringing the front runner train back to the station. And so right now you get off the train and you're at a parking lot.
Right.
Parking lot. Not too romantic, nothing great about that. Functional, I guess. But we want to bring it back to the station.
So you'll actually wait for the train in the building.
Yeah, and when you get off the train, you'll come into the grand hall there, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
And it'll be even nicer when we finish renovating it and bringing it back to historical.
So are we going to have this? Are we going to have this ready for the Olympics?
Yeah, that's the plan. Yes, that's the master plan. And so a lot of the other part of that, in order to make this a functioning train station again, is to connect it to other transportation, other transit. And so we were working with UTA to change the bus station location so we can loop around on the north end of Union Station and queue up on Wall Avenue. So in theory, you should be able to take a train up from Salt Lake City,
And then catch a bus right there.
and walk down the main concourse hall up on the north side, pick up the UTA rapid bus transit out to Weber State or wherever you need to go. And there'll also be a structured parking item there, so you could park your car, catch the front runner train through the station, and then we'll also have pedestrian access as well. And then we're also a little forward thinking. Think about the Jetsons for a moment. You've probably heard the term advanced air mobility or
Yeah.
vertiports.
Right.
And so one of the proposals and the concepts we're working on is a vertiport on the top of the parking structure, for example, that you'd be able to, you could someday.
I've just made a modification to a legislation that's been adopted nationally to change some of the definitions on the vertiport stuff.
Yes, yeah, and we like Ogden City as one of the 4 or 5 potential locations for one of those advanced air mobility stations. And so we hope to be the first, if not soon thereafter. And Union Station is one of those locations, Ogden City Airport, potentially another. And so to be able to get on the front runner, get off at Union Station, take the elevator up to the vertiport, take a vertiport to Snow Basin to watch the downhill in the Olympics. What a cool opportunity that provides for Ogden City and to be a little bit more
having the ability for fans to ride the buses up there.
Yeah,
too, right?
and so we fully expect that Ogden City will be a much bigger focal point for the Olympics this time around than it was the last time. So we're trying to do all we can to make sure that that happens, and the mayor is very passionate about that as well. So it's going to happen.
You know, it's interesting because even that boutique hotel you're talking about can play into that, right?
Absolutely. So real quick, just to wrap up the Union Station campus or neighborhood, the actual museum assets at the Union Station building, they're not in the best location environmentally. Some of those historic assets need to be in a little bit better environmentally controlled situation. We are looking at building, and we've engaged with consultants, museum consultants, the best in the country. We're looking at building a new train exhibit on the south side of the station to do a better job of displaying the assets that we have there. Also a new museum, if you will. The laundry building, which is to the south, renovating that. There's a rooftop deck application plan for that. It's all very cool. I can show the drawings at some point, and just maybe a separate meeting just to talk about that. And then
maybe you could send some of those images to Kevin. We could actually bring them up on the screen.
Yeah, it's very cool. And then the rest of the campus will be a mixed use. One of the things that we found out in some of our recent market studies is we have a lot of market leakage from Ogden in the form of retail and food and beverage. And so even though we have a lot of really nice restaurants in Ogden and a lot of retail, we still lose a lot of it. And so there's opportunity for additional retail opportunities in Ogden. And so there'll be some more of that at Union Station, right adjacent to the rest of our downtown.
Oh, very cool.
There'll be some additional housing opportunities on the north end. And some office and professional development commercial space on the south end. And so we're excited about that. One of the key impediments to integrating Union Station with the rest of downtown is Wall Avenue. And so we just completed or are completing the Wall Avenue study, and we'll be working with UDOT to update Wall Avenue to make it more pedestrian friendly. And so we're talking about medians with vegetation, more crosswalks, bump outs to make it a safer buffer zones for pedestrians, slowing down the speed limit to some extent, and going out 3 or 4 blocks on each side of 25th Street with event signage and so on to
really make that.
Yeah, to make it feel a little more cozy.
Right.
People tend to slow down when it's less like a highway.
Right.
And so that's what we're working with UDOT on at this point. And hopefully those are some of those changes we expect in the next couple of years. So we're excited about that. And actually upgrades all along Wall Avenue throughout Ogden. So we're excited about that. So
hey, we're going to take a break and we'll come right back.
Yeah.
Tired of media bias? Frustrated by political noise? PoliticIt.com cuts through the clutter, giving you real facts, clear analysis, and unbiased insight on the issues that matter most. Stay informed, stay empowered. Whether it's elections, policy changes, or breaking news, we've got you covered. No spin, no agendas, just truth you can trust. Visit PoliticIt.com today because informed citizens shape the future. PoliticIt.com, where politics meets clarity.
Welcome back to PoliticIt. Our conversation during the break, I want to kind of talk about these, some of this last stuff. We don't have a lot of time left, but you'd brought up this Forest Service building. I want to better understand that Art Deco style.
Yeah.
Is very symbolic of Ogden City.
It really is. It's unique, and it's something we're very proud of, and it would be easy to lose it because it's expensive to hold on to assets like that and to keep them at a serviceable level and keep them in good repair. And so, yeah, you're right. The municipal building, Ogden High School, the Forest Service building have very deep historic roots and unique roots here in Ogden, and we're trying to be very careful with those historic assets as well as others throughout the town. Ogden City recently purchased the Forest Service building. We didn't want it to go into disrepair, and we are working with a development partner now. That will be a mixed-use facility with a little bit of residential. We're going to restore the whole building. It needs some seismic upgrades. It needs some love and care, and it's been pretty well cared for, but we're excited about what the future will bring there in combination with a little bit of perhaps retail and commercial space on the bottom floors. And so we're excited about that. It's a big project, an ambitious project, but important because of what you mentioned, the historical connection to Ogden's past.
And I think that's something that people are having a hard time with too, because residents need to understand that most of the tax base is coming from commercial properties, right? And as we build apartment buildings and everything on these commercial properties, we're really kind of handicapping the city long term.
Yes, and there is a little, you could say there's a conflict, right? But because I know at the state level, and we agree with it as well, housing is very important. Housing is limited, right? And even all those apartment buildings that are going up in Ogden and other communities in Utah, they're filling up. There's a demand there for sure. But we've also got to protect our commercial core and our assets there, because that's commercial properties and the businesses that generate the jobs and the sales tax. That's what sustains the city and economically.
So and then keep the property tax down.
That's right. It keeps the property taxes down for everybody else. And so we value and appreciate so much the retail core and the commercial core here in Ogden City. We're very fortunate. So, yep, it's great.
Well, we're about out of time, but any parting ideas that you think about that public are really interested in, that they're asking you a lot about?
I think, we had a city budget meeting a few weeks ago, public open house, and somebody asked me, why does Ogden City get involved in redevelopment? Why do you build houses or renovate houses? Why do you buy properties, empty properties, to try and do something with them? And the reason for that, Ogden City's old. We have a lot of properties that have sat there for decades. Nobody's done anything with them. There's usually a reason. There's like soil conditions. There's environmental issues. There's buildings that need a lot of asbestos removal or lead paint removal. Most contractors, they won't mess with that stuff. It's easier just to go to one of the suburbs and build something new. And so, but Ogden City has an interest in getting better use out of all those properties, and that's the reason we do these things, because it's an investment back into our community to make it a nicer place to live. And so we have our community redevelopment authority, and the city council is part of that. And so we develop plans that focus on certain parts of town that need some extra attention, some extra love, if you will, some extra investment. And we work with development partners to make that worth their while to come in and invest in our city. And so we spend a lot of time on that, and it's very important to us to make this a better place. So.
Very good. Well, we really appreciate you coming in. It's been really informative, and thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. We love it.
And thank you guys. We'll see you next week.